Hello, in this video we're going to be talking about ATP, so let's not waste any of your time. Let's get right to it. Now when we're talking ATP, the first thing we want to recognize is that this is the energy supplier for the cell. You can think of it as the battery, you can think of it as currency, whatever your concept is, mental concept is, but it's the one that supplies the energy that gets everything done for the cell. Now we've looked at ATP back in wasn't macromolecules. Must have been was it organelles, plasma membrane, anyway, somewhere. But we've looked at the structure of this, but we'll look at it here again. It's got three main components. It's got that nucleotide, adenine, in the diagram below me on the upper right. Okay, then it's got that sugar, ribose, and then it's got three phosphates for the tri. The A stands for adenine, the T for the tri, and the P for phosphate. So why they didn't put R ribose in there, I don't know. ATPR, I don't know. But when we think about creating energy for the cell, it's that bond between the second and the third phosphate that gets broken. Now we can see that O in between the two P's on the far left of that diagram, and we've talked plenty of times in the past, when you see an oxygen holding two molecules together, being that connecting element, man, that just should scream at you that dehydration synthesis has occurred. The water molecule left, and once that's broken, the O and the H will return to the third phosphate, and then the other H will return to the second phosphate to form those bonding pairs again. But ATP is made simply to be broken apart over and over and over again to release that energy so the cell can do everything that it needs to do. It stores energy, but not for very long, and its bonds are very unstable, so they're easily broken. And of course, if we talked in the previous video about the larger the molecule, the more energy you can hold, so it makes sense that ATP would have the most energy of the types. And if you break it apart, now you have ADP, then that will be a less amount of energy. And if you just have one phosphate, AMP, then that's going to be the lowest energy form. Of course, then the M would stand for mono. So ATP is broken apart, energy is released, just like think of that firecracker example. And when we build it, ADP into ATP, we're building molecules, so dehydration synthesis, potential energy, anabolic pathways, endergonic reactions, all those words come into play, okay, time and time again. If we're adding something to the molecule, we're reducing it, and of course oxidation. What you're going to see when we're looking at the diagrams in 7 and 8 is that somebody brings that third phosphate, whether it's an electron carrier or whoever it may be, they bring that in, and for that phosphate to be added. Okay, so when we think about ATP, not very stable. Okay, as I said, the bonds are unstable, so it's easily broken apart. But that's a positive. Just like in your DNA, the hydrogen bonds between the nucleotides are weak, but that needs to be, so it can be broken apart easily. Not much energy is used to make that happen, and therefore you have more net gain on the breaking apart, the release, as that. And of course, a bunch of stuff here to write down. So when the ATP is broken and becomes ADP, we're releasing energy, and vice versa. When we take ADP and add a third phosphate, we are storing energy into that. The idea of breaking apart an ATP molecule to gain the energy, and then that energy is used, some of it, to build the molecule or a molecule to get the work done it needs to be. So when that happens, just like everything else, that's a coupled reaction. When the energy from one is used to make the other one, anytime you have those two things working in tandem, that's they put the word coupled in front of that. Okay, the idea of a coupled reaction, we've got two slides here back to back. They're going to showcase this. They essentially are the same thing. They just kind of showcase it in a different way. But in this one, you can see the cycle. And again, there's no notes at the bottom that to write down, but you would want to capture the information from the diagram beside me here. But you've got the ATP molecule, okay, and it gets broken apart. Okay, it gets built in photosynthesis. It doesn't matter where you start on that diagram. It's just a cycle. So in photosynthesis, you're going to build the molecule, and then in cellular respiration, you get it broken apart, and then some of that energy is used to build the next molecule. So it's a continuous cycle, breaking apart, releasing energy, using energy to build a molecule, break it apart. Excuse me. And then the cycle just continues. This is the same information. Again, no words in this one, but you can see the ATP molecule at the very top. It's got the 3 phosphates. A phosphate is removed, energy is released. Now you have ADP, but on the back side, some energy from breaking down the food is used to add the 3rd phosphate back, and then you break that part again, releasing a bunch of energy, and then to build it, you use a little bit of energy to put it back to where it is. All right, when we're talking ATP, the organelle, and we've mentioned this in chapter 4 of the organelles, that the mitochondria is the place where this happens. And when we look at it in chapter 7, you'll see that the process of making ATP molecules kind of moves around the mitochondria. Starts on the outside in the cytoplasm, and then it moves inward and across the membranes of the mitochondria. But that's the location, that's the place where the magic happens, and we'll break that process down very strongly in chapter 7. Well, that's our video over ATP. The next time we get together, we'll be taking our first look at enzymes. So we'll see you then.